Welcome to Sports Buds Hockey Podcast, where two friends come together to discuss all things hockey and where everyone's opinion is appreciated. Please welcome your hosts, Merrick and Collin Simpson.
Hello and welcome to a very exciting episode of Sports Buds Hockey Podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 23. My name is Merrick and with me, as always, my buddy Collin Simpson. How are you doing tonight, Simps?
Well, not as good as you are, I'm sure, but doing still pretty good myself.
Absolutely. You know why I'm coming at it with a good attitude. We have the Edmonton Oilers through to the second round. And I know there was a lot of people that maybe were picking against the Oilers this year, maybe didn't have faith in them. Some Simpsons, I believe. No, I know you always picked them, but you said 7 because you were kind of just throwing that at the end. But what a finish, what a game. Pretty exciting. I would have liked a little bit less excitement at the end. I think we made some good calls on it, but what a great series. Really excited to see them going. You know, as we're going to move forward, I want to just take a quick look back and see what we thought of the game, the series, all of that. What were some of your thoughts, both Game 6 as well as overall for this one?
Well, let's just start by setting the record straight. I picked them to win 5-1 in Game 6. Unfortunately, they didn't clean up as quick as I thought they would. I think the story was the same. Kemper was good again, though. I still felt like the Oilers were able to keep coming out with the momentum. I felt like they had a bunch of lines firing. I felt like LA was just hanging on. They looked, again, tired. They did have some chances, though. Like, it wasn't as much of a runaway as I thought it was going to be. There was 2 or 3 pucks that just sat in the Oilers' net and just rolled out and to the side. But it was like that type of thing where you could see that LA just didn't have that energy to just reach out and poke it in somewhere.
To finish, they couldn't get there. Even when there was something open, they didn't have the jam to get there.
Correct. So it would be there, and it wasn't. There was that last stretch, and an Oiler guy would reach out and get it and poke it away, or it was just getting to pucks first, winning little puck battles, not due to a lack of trying, but it was just due to a lack of energy. Obviously, it ended up how I kind of expected it to happen. I think the Oilers maybe had to put a lot of energy into the series. We'll see how much they had to spend to get through LA. But the good news is they kind of finished strong in the sense of they're going to go into the next series with a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
Which I think it was going to be key for them because they are a somewhat streaky team. But so if you're streaking the wrong way, they can kind of get down on themselves, and that happens to really talented teams when things aren't going well. Mm-hmm. And when things are going well, then they start rolling.
Well, just to clarify, I think it's pretty tough to be, on a bad streak and get to the next round. But I see what you're saying.
Well, no, but you can't tell me the Oilers don't win 19 straight and then lose 11 straight.
Oh, yeah. No,
it's
they...
the type of team that easily goes, when they're doing well, they do really well. When
it's
they're
true.
Doing poorly, they do really poorly. So,
well, one of the big things with this, especially the last couple games, there was a few games in there where you had the Draisaitl. There was Game 4, he had 4 points, including the game winner. McDavid had a couple of 3 and 4 point nights, that kind of stuff. They were actually relatively quiet the last few games. The 3-1 win, I think they had a couple of assists on the empty netter. The next game, I think there was one assist, I think, by Bouchard, Draisaitl, and McDavid. One assist was all they got when 11 players, I think, scored points in that 6-4 win. But they were also plus or at least 0 players, right? So they're doing their job. They're holding things together and not losing any momentum. But it wasn't just them on fire that moved them past it, which I think is a huge sign because the next round, maybe they do need to be those guys, or hopefully, hockey gods willing, the next 2-3 rounds, they'll maybe need to be there for some of those games. And it will be 2 4-point nights that put the Oilers over somebody else at, a 4-3 game, and McDavid and Draisaitl both have 4 points. In this one, you had Connor Brown was all over the place. Frederick got a goal. Darnell Nurse got a goal. This was an all-around effort. Everybody was involved. And yeah, I think that's a huge plus for them, especially momentum-wise. You start to see it when those guys start feeling like they're contributing as much as the big lines and everything else. When they start rolling into Vegas, they're going to need all those lines feeling like they can do a good job and feeling like they could be a part of it, even if they're not always that confident about it.
Yeah, I feel like in this series, a couple of my favorite players from the series who I thought had great games almost each and every single time, consistent, was actually Victor Arvidsson and Connor Brown. I
Yep.
felt like they both had great series. I noticed them every time they're on the ice. Maybe they're not always scoring. Yeah, Connor gets a few points in that last game, and Arvidsson didn't get any, but I feel like I see him every time he go in the zone, he'd take it in with speed, hold it up, keep the play going, create some chances. Thought they played it really well. It is kind of funny, though, because then they talked about this last game, talking about depth scoring and stuff like that. And I actually had a laugh at the game when the announcer scored, when Nuge scored his goal. And then they were like talking about depth scoring, and I was laughing my butt off because I was like, okay, most teams when we talk about depth scoring, we're talking about the third and fourth lines, like the fourth line chipping something in and the third liner getting a goal or whatever. Only at the Oilers do we talk about anybody that isn't two players is depth scoring. I just find that weird. You're like, no.
Well,
Second line players
when
are
you
not
look
depth
at the
scorers.
playoffs, you look at the playoffs and the amount of points that they've scored is insane. Like it really is. You're talking about a point and a half, 2 points a game for these guys, some of these playoff runs. Like it really is kind of crazy when it is anybody else is kind of depth scoring when they're almost winning games on their own sometimes it feels like.
Correct, which is a good thing, meaning you have two insane superstars, but is also sometimes a bad thing going, if you got two guys that are dominating that much, shouldn't you have a cup? So I kind of worry, like, what if the other guys do dry up, or what if, McDavid and that do dry up against, and you have much better checking lines coming out, in my opinion, from even Vegas, even though LA had a good record defensively.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
they were second in goals against this year, I believe.
Yeah, but I think that was a lot of goaltending. That's the reason why Kemper was up for trophies. I think that was a lot of, Doughty back, but maybe before injured, not running with like four defensemen. I think Vegas will be a bit better four-line team coming at you.
Yeah.
So I think they do need to actually get these guys who are playing well. Like I said, Arvidsson had a great last game, I thought, but no points. They will need these guys to actually continue to score and to play well, because it will be a bit different game. Unless you see Vegas get an injury, that defensive line from Vegas is much stronger and much deeper than the one from LA, in my opinion.
Well, a couple things. I want to talk about the goaltending first that you mentioned. And I think that Kemper, while having a really good season and obviously nominated for the Vezina and up there for it and justifiably so, I think the last few years, for the most part, tough call for them, but for the Kings, they've had rebound guys. Talbot, rebound year. Kemper, rebound year. All these guys are excelling in their 1-3-1, or as we talked about, almost 0-5 kind of series where that they've just putting a wall up in front of them. So even when you lose 2-1. So your numbers are still great. You look at Kemper's numbers after like that 3-1 game. Like he lost 3-1, but he gave up 2 goals. But his save percentage was .960 or something, because his numbers are amazing because they gave up 45 shots, but a lot of them were the outside. They actually had more inside shots too, but he's making good saves and he's in the right spot. I think it's inflated on how good their goalies are, and then they struggle obviously against the Oilers every year in the playoffs, right? But yeah, the last couple of years, Talbot was he's never had a better season. It's rebound for him. And then he got shelled in the playoffs. They went to Riddick and Talbot was marched out of town and whatever else. I don't think you're going to see Kemper go. I think they signed him for a few years, so hopefully he sticks around and, he's a good playoff and a good player no matter what. Even if the playoffs didn't go his way, he still did pretty well most of it. The other thing, when you talk about the lines for Vegas, I think Vegas's lines, while not necessarily as maybe defensive sound, as far as the way LA plays and getting everybody back, but I think that they've got a better chance to be proactive, right? How do you prevent, like you said, I think earlier in one of the other podcasts, how do you prevent McDavid and Draisaitl from scoring? Don't let them have the puck. So I think you're going to see with Vegas, they're going to have a better opportunity to actually have those guys in the mix and cycling themselves instead of a chip and a charge, and that's all they've got. So if the defense doesn't screw it up and dump it right back to a guy up the middle, and they just move the puck around, then they're already past those forwards for LA. The defense part doesn't work. They're already dropping back. Everything else, there's no pressure. I think you're going to see with Vegas, you're going to see that pressure. You're going to see those guys bumping and grinding and actually trying to make plays in their end, and that'll make a big difference. Even if their players aren't necessarily way better defensively, that offensive pressure will make that difference up.
Well, you're going to look at the success from games 1 and 2 for the LA Kings in this series was getting the puck in deep and putting pressure on that defense. And watching them turn over pucks because they had no time to make a proper play. They would make a panic play and it'd be a turnover. And then as the series went on, the forecheck couldn't get there. So they were still dumping it in. And like BX and them talked about it in one of the intermissions. And they're like, okay, the only way they're getting back in this is get the puck in deep and put pressure on the D. And they were dumping it in, but they were just so tired and so slow. Or because they were so tired, they're making changes instead of chasing, that there was no pressure on the D anymore. All of a sudden, Bouchard and those guys were able to get the puck, turn, face, make a nice pass out, and then it starts the offense going the other way. And the way they want to go that way, they don't want to chip it out. They want to have time to turn and look and hit McDavid and these guys through the neutral zone.
I would take it one step further and say not just in games 1 and 2, I would say in periods 1 and 2, right? Because even in games 3 and 4, they still had jam left in the first couple periods. They still had that gas. They still had the ability to get in there a little bit and do that. So those first couple periods, but again, by the third period, they're slowing down. And typically, I think just about every game, they had the lead going into the third period. So you're tired already. You don't want to be out there and give up a goal. So you're hanging back a bit more. So now you're not chipping and charging anymore. You're just, maybe you're getting close or maybe you're whatever, and then you're pulling back. Like you said, you're going for a change or you're just starting to play defensive already and letting them come at you. So, yeah, I think that both 1 and 2 for games, but also 1 and 2 for periods for that.
Yeah, and so I think that's what you'll probably see a lot from Vegas. I think that's what we kind of touched on is they have the type of team that can get in there with multiple lines. I think they'll try the same concept. Obviously, the Oilers have had a team just try to do that to them. They're going to try to make some adjustments to counter that. Obviously, there'll be some different plays to break that out. So maybe some quick little one-touch passes out of there. Maybe a little more support down low on the boards. So it's not like you feel like you're caught and have to make a pass right in front of your net. You can go up the boards because there's a guy there. I think that'll maybe be some adjustment they'll make, but should make for an exciting round. I think that was a great series again between Edmonton and LA like we get every single year. I do hope that next year we don't see them again. There becomes a point where you're just tired of seeing the same series, and I'm probably at that point right now. I think there could be a more exciting series for us for a round 1 matchup next
I don't know if it was an actual quote or not, but it was credited to Drew Doughty. He said, "What rivalry? They beat us every year."
Oh, yeah.
It's not really rivals.
Speaking of that, just because you brought up his name, this is where I think LA needs to kind of go back to the drawing board a little here. I don't want to get too far into what I think needs to happen with them, but I start to wonder if from this series and how many years in a row against the Oilers, I think it's time. Like, they got a decent core and there's some young guys, but it's time. I don't know how you do it, but if there's any way to move on from Drew Doughty and then, so Drew Doughty, I'm knocking him a lot on this series. He looked old, he looked slow, but he was impactful.
Yep.
Every time I notice any scrum, any play, there's Drew Doughty. Sometimes he's a step behind, sometimes he get beat where he shouldn't, but he was a competitive player. He had a great compete level. Anze Kopitar was a ghost on the front end and the back end from one of the best two-way players I've seen in his career.
Points in the first 2 games, and then after that,
even if he got points, he was still invisible. His points would have been like accidental assist to somebody else where Kempe went around 3 guys and scored. Like, there was nothing to his game for 6 straight games. And so when you're looking at going how many million they got tied up into him and he's what they were building
I don't know what he's got left. Like, because he'll be a big number for sure, but I don't know how many years he has left to be worth looking.
Correct. So, but is he immovable? Is he not? I know. I just feel like the Kings are not going to do any better than they did this year if they don't address.
We say that every year.
Getting a bit faster.
We say they should never get there, and then the next year, there they are. This is the first year they were actually ahead of Edmonton for that playoff round, but Edmonton hasn't won the division, so it's been 2 versus 3, these 2 teams, for 4 years straight. Right? So, I mean...
But are they there because the other teams are weak below?
Vancouver? I mean, last year, Vegas just barely crept in and Vancouver won it.
Look at the teams right behind them. I'm sorry, they're not really good teams.
One of them's yours.
Yeah, unfortunately. That's what I'm saying. we're in an absolute rebuild. So if you're only just ahead of my rebuild team, then are you really that good? And are you really going to compete? The Oilers are knocking you out, but even if you got through the Oilers, you're not just going to get smacked by one of these other actually strong teams. I
But
just feel like they're not
realistically,
good
look at
enough.
that first round. Who do you put them up against and winning? But I mean, and that's the thing. When you look at this, everybody, not everybody, obviously, there was some of us that still stuck with Edmonton, but there was a lot of people picked LA this year. The defense is too good. The goaltending is too good. They're too, they've got a lot of scoring now. They're going to do great. They're going to absolutely beat the tar out of the Oilers. They can't handle it. Everything else. A lot of people picked LA, but who do you put them up against
I
and
just
say they're
like
going to win?
who picked them though. Like I don't understand that though, because everything I've seen was still put the Oilers as favorites. I never saw anybody talk about LA as a favorite.
Oh, I saw tons. There's lots of picks out there and everything else.
I
But
can't see it. Like after seeing Drew Doughty in the Four Nations, and I know he's their best defenseman. Like how could you pick them? Like he was substandard that tournament. He only had X amount of time down the stretch to,
yeah,
you
number
know,
6.
you look at it and say, well, okay, you got a bit of time to get some more games in. Yeah, at 36 years old though, it's not like a 24-year-old getting some games back into game shape.
Yeah.
So if at that point he's your best defenseman, I just
So
don't see how
who do
anybody
you
would
pick
thought.
them against the other 17? Well, the other 6 teams, obviously the Oilers. Is there anybody you pick them to beat?
The
Minnesota,
Wild,
St. Louis,
yeah,
maybe.
Wild and St. Louis would be the only two teams I would take them to beat.
So I mean,
And
yeah,
and even then, I probably for sure against the Wild. I'd probably take them against St. Louis as well. To be honest, a little more consistency through the years.
yep.
Obviously in those type of games. Now that I've seen them, I don't pick them against St. Louis or Minnesota, and
No,
that's nothing to knock them against. But I think both those teams do the same thing the Oilers did and run them down.
yep.
And that's all it turns into. It was not a matter of skill. It wasn't a matter of anything else. It was just one team came out flying, didn't have the stamina to keep it going. Other team picked up some momentum, started to play better, started to play well, started to take the play to them, and just gassed them. And that was
A
it.
big part I would say with that too is the special teams.
Oh,
Right, that completely
we talked
flipped.
about it. We talked about it. Remember, I
Yeah,
said whoever's going to win these next couple of games, and special teams, wins this series.
yeah.
And sure enough, it's completely flipped on its head. Oilers took the power plays now. Kings couldn't put anything in on them. All momentum continues, and it's over.
Just like that.
So
Great series. Great that it went to the right team, and that we get to continue on with the Oilers. We'll obviously be watching all those games. We'll continue with that for all you guys, making sure that we touch base on them. Just a quick note: anything happen Flames wise, just in case maybe they're making trades or signing people or
I know
whatever
that.
at this point.
Yeah, there was actually a big signing. Matt Coronado got locked up, I think, for 7 years.
Oh yeah,
Thinking about 6.5. I feel like I saw. So, a lot of people I've seen online saying, "Oh, that's a lot of money," and you're like, technically, yes, it's a lot of money for not a truly proven player, right? He's only been keeping his spot in the NHL for the last year and a half.
yeah. Like
But
I
he
think
was
it's
near 30 goals this year. He is a goal scorer. The guy's got a great shot.
yeah,
And the fact is, in my opinion, the way the cap's scheduled to go up, 6.5 in 3 years, watching the big jumps it's taking, is about a 3.5 right now. 3.5 to 4. So if you're like a $3.5 to $4 million 27 goal scorer, I'd say most people are saying that's a great contract.
yeah.
So all he's
Well,
got
and
to do
he's
is stay at
20, what, 22,
24.
23?
Yeah, he might be 23.
Somewhere in that
22,
range
yeah.
Anyway. Young guy. So
He fits
locking
the
him in for
rebuild.
6-7 years.
And he fits the rebuild. So you're going to get him through his prime.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the first time the Flames have done that. We've given out so many long-term contracts that are to older guys who finish their 7
28,
years at
29.
like 35 and 36. So to finish a career up at a long-term contract at 30, and then you're not making the mistake that they did with Kachuk. Hey, let's do a bridge. Well, wait, what if he's good for 2 straight years and he can now leave?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's not let that happen, right? So I think they're learning from their mistakes. I think that
Different
was a big
guy.
signing. They'll have a couple more guys they got to look at to sign. I'm still waiting to see if they move on from Anderson. I hope they do. No offense to Rasmus. He's been a great Flame. But if you're truly doing a rebuild and you've got multiple young defensemen coming in,
Let
that's
them
a
play.
great chip to go looking for a centerman or a couple more good draft picks to look for a center. Not this next draft, but the draft after, I think, is full of centermen. So
Yeah.
that might be the play.
Yeah.
But yeah, other
There we
than
go.
that, just
Awesome.
a little bit to look at while I watch the rest of the teams go for the cup.
So many teams not from Calgary still playing. So yeah, we'll be back. The next podcast is going to be a round 2 preview. Make all our calls on all the series. So there's 8 teams left, and we'll be pretty excited to see how that one turns out. Obviously, we'll be hoping for the Oilers to move forward. Even Collin, we had to wait a couple days on this one before he could calm down enough to be able to actually come and talk about it. So it's been really good getting him out here. Once again, we really enjoy doing this for you guys. So don't forget to look us up, subscribe on all our Instagram, on YouTube, all our podcast availability spots, Spotify, Apple Music, Google, Amazon, all of those things as well. You can always find us at www.sportsbuds.com. That's sportsbudz.com. And yeah, make sure subscribe, follow us, do all that stuff, and then that way we'll be able to tell you guys new things, and you'll be able to tell us when Simpson gets things wrong. So thank you very much, Simps. You did great tonight, and you did point out a couple of times you were right.
Yeah, unfortunately, the times I was right was about the Oilers doing well, but maybe next time I'll be wrong, hopefully.
No. You can keep picking them all series and all playoffs long. We'll go right to the end with you picking them. All right, thanks, Simps. Have a good night.
Take care.